Welcome back to the Lap Podcast. I'm Tristan Ryans. That is Khaki Kevin Walker. This is episode 24 of the Lap Podcast, 8 episodes into our second season following the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. If you haven't already, please like the podcast, hit subscribe. It costs you absolutely nothing at all to support the channel. Helps us move on up the algorithm. Feel free to follow us on all the socials. They're scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now. What are you doing? Hit subscribe. And if you're feeling dangerous, share us with your friends. We are following kind of a muted Saudi Arabian Grand Prix by most accounts, if I'm being completely honest. Exciting for you, for better or worse, but I wanted to just start right with the Saudi Arabia storylines. I wanted to follow up and what storyline to start with rather than Lando Norris versus Oscar Piastri. A rough qualifying for Lando Norris. He had only a little bit of a funny aside for that, actually. Where were you when you were watching qualifying this past weekend, Kevin?
I was in the middle of hosting, actually. I was hosting a show on the weekends with one of my co-hosts, and I asked him if I could put F1 on the Topps TV because we have multiple TV setups. And he's like, yeah, sure, like that's fine. So I'm sitting there, I'm doing an interview about some baseball, and then out of nowhere, Lando Norris decides to clip the wall and crash in Q3, which, you know, I'm a consummate professional, so I kept my poise even though I was crying inside, and I continued on with the segment that which I was talking about. But inside I was like, what the hell just happened? Why did this just happen? How did this just happen? And how is this is going to affect everything? And I told you about this off air, but Lando topped the charts in FP2. Lando topped the charts in FP3. He was killing it in the qualifying. I was like, yes, this is my prediction was right. This is Lando's weekend. And then it just all fell apart right there in front of everybody. Max took pole. Oscar was second. It was a
really exciting qualifying.
It was an exciting qualifying.
You were the first person I thought of, by the way, when I saw Lando crash.
I'm so glad that you texted me.
I texted you exactly immediately.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I texted you immediately.
I think you texted me actually before the wreck had even happened in real time. That's how quick you texted me. I was just like, all right, well,
yeah. Hit him with the LMFAO. I couldn't help it. I just thought of you. I know that's your boy. But like if something had happened to Kimmy,
by the way, just if you're ever wanting to think of somebody, I don't think LMFAO is the way to go. I don't think that didn't feel very like.
No,
hey,
I didn't want
thinking about you. I'm worried about you. It's like,
well,
hey,
I didn't want
to fun of you.
I didn't want to spoil it, but I wanted to like bring the impact of my reaction to its full front. You know, just let you know where I was in that exact moment while you were having to remain a professional. Look, the rest of qualifying though was very exciting. We kind of had like a one-lap shootout caused by Lando Norris's crash.
He knew what he was doing
for the team, right?
Yeah.
Now, there was kind of a one-lap shootout sort of situation towards the end where George Russell set the fastest lap, immediately followed by Oscar Piastri setting the fastest lap by like almost a tenth more, if I'm not mistaken. And then following that, Max Verstappen pulling out pole by 0.8084 seconds. So 0.08 of a second faster than Oscar Piastri.
It was really, really tight at the top.
The qualifying this year, pretty much across the board, almost every weekend has been separated by less than, I know for a fact, it's like less than 1.5 tenths. The margins have been below a tenth for almost every qualifying so far this season.
I don't know the time off the top of my head, but I do want to say that Max set a lap record during qualifying.
Yeah.
Does that sound accurate? Yeah, that's like what the third or fourth lap record that we've had set this year.
Yeah.
So,
but
pretty exciting stuff. The cars are moving faster and we're getting better driving than ever before.
I mean, yeah, the margins are super thin, but that magnifies, especially if when you're Lando Norris and you do crash and you do have to start in P10. You have the fastest car on track. Whether he wants to accept it or not, you do have the fastest car on track over the course of this entire season. And starting in 10th place, that really limits your options when your teammates starting in at least second place, right? And then, you know, obviously things happen during the race. But as far as it concerns both of these drivers, like Piastri went on to win by just under 3 seconds over Max. Lando fell to second place in the World Drivers' Championship standings. He's at 89 points
Well,
to Oscar's 99.
Let's break down the race a little bit though, because it was I know you kind of said it was a little bit of a boring race, but I think Jeddah actually, I think it actually proved to be a pretty exciting race. We got really good racing from at the top. You know, Ferrari kind of punched in there. They, you know, Charles kind of got up on the podium, which I know he said he didn't really expect. And I think for Ferrari, that's massive for the improvements. It's massive for them as a team. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Oscar obviously got the win. That's his third of the year.
Back to back, by the way, from Bahrain to Jeddah.
These last 3 weeks have really been that of the Oscar Piastri dominance. He's really just been on it. That's his fourth win, or excuse me, that was his third win, his fourth podium. He sets the bar at 99 points in the driver's standings. Obviously, like you said, Lando in second with 89. Lando's got 1 win, 4 podiums of his own. And then Max, obviously, in third with 87 points, just 2 points behind Lando with his 1 win and 3 podiums. So it's nowhere near decided. And that's what I think we should love about this driver's standing. And even the constructors, you look at McLaren, they're 188 points above Mercedes, who have 111.
So, but you're kind of leading into the question I really wanted to ask within all of this, because we had this conversation off air. We've had this conversation a lot this season, and I know for a fact the TLPs, let us know what you think of this, by the way, in the comments. But does Lando have what it takes to make this a true title battle?
He does. He absolutely
you
does.
100% believe this.
I really do. I mean, look, I would not be saying it to the TLPs. I would not be saying it to you on air and off air as often as I did if I didn't believe it. I'm not going to just stick to something just because I said it. Look, I have many predictions, and some of them are right and some of them are wrong. We'll still see. We're still yet to see if I was right about the Ferrari prediction. We're still yet to see if I was right about my Williams prediction. I still have full confidence in Lando Norris. Yes, he is an unorthodox driver in the fact that he doesn't want to kill everybody on track to win. Max is like that. Some other drivers are like that, and that's fine. There's different styles of winning. I appreciate Lando and the way that he goes about things. He's the nice guy on the track. He's the nice guy off the track. He's not going to kill everybody to try to win. And I appreciate that. I think he's got the car to do it. I think he's got the skills to do it. Now, for those who want to argue and say that Oscar's a better driver,
he is.
I get the argument and I understand the argument, but I also just think that they're different drivers, and I think that they can complement each other. I think that that's why they work the way they do.
That's not the question.
I understand,
because the question is,
and I said yes. Did I not say yes?
No. But like the crux of this really is, it's not about teamwork. It's about who's going to win a driver's championship.
Okay, I get that.
He could be a great teammate. He might be a great second driver. In fact,
no, he is a championship driver.
You think he's a championship level driver?
I do. I 1000% believe that.
I don't believe that.
And look, you can say that Oscar's better at overtaking. You can say Oscar's better at this, that, or the other. And I understand that. But right now is Lando's moment. This year is Lando's moment. And if he throws it away, that's on nobody else but him. I said it last week. McLaren are going to leave this up to these two drivers. They say that they've got 2 number 1 drivers. They're going to operate as such. If Oscar is the better driver, then he is going to win this championship. They're not going to favor Oscar over Lando. They're not going to favor Lando over Oscar. But it is Lando's year to win, even if next year is Oscar's and the year after that is Oscar's. In the long run, we'll see who's a better driver. But to say that Lando isn't championship worthy is unfair. I do believe he is.
Look,
and I think that he's about to turn it on. I think he's going to turn it all around. And I think this year can still be his year. There's no reason to say it's not.
Look, the original question being, can he make this a true title battle?
Yes.
The question being,
he will be in this title fight.
I think the crux really is in another facet. Can he maintain form in qualifying? Through 5 rounds, we've watched Lando Norris not be the guy, in my opinion. He fell into a win in Australia. In Japan, he could not catch Max Verstappen.
I'm tired of you saying that.
No. You went first. Yeah, I let you go first, and I'm gonna have my moment here. Look,
I'm tired of
Lando
you
Norris
he fell into the win in Australia. He deserved that win
because it absolutely could have gone any other way.
And it could have. It could have. Would we be saying the same thing on Mercedes win? No, we would say they did a good job of managing their tires.
No, 100% people said the exact same thing. When George Russell won last year, when Lando and Max collided, well, George really fell into that way. Right. Oh, when McLaren botched the strategy in Silverstone, amazing moment for Lewis, but McLaren botched the strategy. They kind of fell into that way.
Right, but I have never said that.
But I'm saying the circumstances of a win still exists
You
the
don't
exact same
fall
way
into
for
a win.
Lando Norris.
You don't
the
fall
way
into
that
a win.
he fell into that win.
Unless over half the grid crashes, you don't fall into a win.
There is a moment.
You have to deserve that win. You have to stay on track. You have to do your job. You have to stick
And Lando
to the
couldn't
race
even
to the
stay on track
strategy.
the whole time either.
Okay, and that's fine. He still won the damn thing.
And he still won it.
So how does that tell you? How does that mean that he fell into the win?
So what
I
I'm
think Lando
saying,
has
my argument here is that if it goes any other way on strategy call, he could have very well been third.
Well, that's why
second
you
place on that
deserve
grid.
the win and not just have the win fall in your lap. You act like he got in the car and everybody else fucking crashed and then he just won. When that's just not what happened. That's simply not what happened. I said it. Did Oscar dominate these past 3 weeks? He did. This was Oscar's 3 weeks to dominate. But to say that Lando's had bad 5 races is absolutely untrue.
When you're supposed to be the leading championship candidate, when you're supposed to be the prime championship contender, Zach Brown and the whole infrastructure of McLaren are like, this is Lando's year. And you can't catch Max Verstappen in a better car in Japan. And then you certainly can't beat your teammate in Bahrain. And you certainly couldn't overtake a waning Mercedes in Bahrain for second place in the least. That would have at least made this championship still Lando Norris's. And on top of that, your teammate outperforms you in qualifying because you've been in sector 1.
Now, like I said, did I or not?
So what I'm thinking
Lando
about
has had a bad 3 weeks.
By whose fault is that?
And that's Lando's fault. I agree, but to say he's had bad 5
so
if
if it's his fault that he isn't leading this championship, then it's his fault. Quite simply put, you said it yourself.
Yeah, but
right?
what you're doing
so
is
what,
you're falling into.
So my argument is he going to be a championship level driver? Your argument is yes, I believe he is, but it's also his fault that he's messed up these last 3 weeks. Could he turn it around? He's gonna have to do it in qualifying, which the latest example of his qualifying was, I bend it and hit the wall, and I had to start in P10, and I had to recover and do a P4,
which was incredible to have a P4.
Yeah,
it was P4. Yeah, because I remember I was like, man, I hope he gets P5 because P5 would be best case scenario, and he ended up getting a P4.
He's driving a rocket ship.
He was mere laps away from passing Charles.
What I'm saying is there's an absolute difference here between the racecraft of Oscar Piastri, in which he's not putting it in a position to lose necessarily,
right?
And on top of that, he is the most consistent driver so far this season to be in first place in this championship. He's got 3 wins to his name this season, back-to-back win. The only multiple race winner this season across any format, by the way, because Lewis Hamilton's got that sprint in China. So as far as who is going to lead this championship right now, all of the evidence says it's going to be an Oscar Piastri kind of season because Lando Norris hasn't been able to hang.
We're just gonna have to agree to disagree.
I mean, look, we got 20 rounds left. I hope Lando can keep this an actual fun championship.
I just don't want you to fall because it looks like you're falling into the Lando won, boo Lando. Lando lost, boo Lando.
No, I give him credit when he did win in Australia.
But he definitely gets that
because staying on track during all the because winning in those conditions was still something remarkable. But I'm saying that there is an argument to be made that he very well could have not, and he would have had 0 wins at this point in the championship.
The ones I'm talking to you, okay? TLPs, me and you right here. If you're a true Papaya fan and you are still with Lando, because I know that there is a lot of McLaren fans out there.
Look, I know it's orange in the background, but I didn't realize this was the Papaya podcast.
No, this is the Papaya podcast right now. If you're out there and you're still with Lando instead of pivoting to Oscar as your favorite driver, if you're out there and you're defending Lando Norris, I'm with you. We're going to ride this thing out. Because if he's the winner at the end of this thing, guess who was right? It was us. And if we were wrong and he isn't the championship level driver that we think he was, we'll take that. We'll take it to the grave. But that's the hill I'm dying on. And if you're willing to die on that hill with me, thank you.
I'm saying that this is the real, and to wrap up, because we have so much more to talk about, but just my final word.
This is all we're talking about.
Look, I mean, we could.
You see the background.
We could spend 40 minutes on it. But look, my look, my overall sentiment here is the consistency of Oscar is going to win out in this championship. He's just got better metal. He seems more made for it. That's where we are. Your belief on the talent of Lando is fantastic. He is a great driver, and he deserves to be in this position to be winning this championship or competing for it. But Oscar's he's more consistent, and that might win the day. Sometimes it helps. Damon Hill, if I'm not mistaken, won a championship by being consistent. Anyway,
we're done.
There were some other things we had to we have to cover going through the rest of this podcast. And the next thing that I wanted to cover is Mercedes. My question going into Saudi Arabia was, can Mercedes capitalize? And here's your good opportunity to jump all over me for being wrong on
which
something.
I've never done. I've literally never done that. I feel like you just dog my team, but I'm just like,
when you got
let's go
championship
Mercedes.
expectations, you got to meet championship level criticism. All right. The question was, can Mercedes capitalize? This was a weekend that, walking in, my expectations were that they could absolutely fight for a win. And to say they underperformed when winning is the objective, you underperformed. They absolutely did not. I thought they'd be in the window, at least on for another George Russell podium, and they fell into a P5, P6, which that's still a pretty respectable weekend by all accounts. But when the expectations are to win, not quite. Still a bit of a ways off target. Mercedes messed up on the setup, and that applied a ton of graining to the front end of the car, specifically the front left for George, who complained for a good chunk of the final stint that the tires were blistering. And if you're not sure what blistering is, it's imbalance on temperature in the tire, creates bubbles, leads to more graining more aggressively. Basically, it's kind of a death sentence for your tires if you push them too hard. Toto Wolff even saying post-race, the worst performance so far of the year. The pace was just dropping away with a blistering tire, overheating. So far, we haven't gotten the explanations. Although, to be fair, there was a silver lining here. Kimi had a solid race. He held off Lewis Hamilton for P6. So expectations were definitely higher for me, though. They fell short. I was disappointed watching this race as a Mercedes resident fan. And overall, I think it is a bit of an example, and we see this example throughout all of these other teams, that you need the setup window to be just right to even be competitive this year. You really do. Mm-hmm. What do you think of Mercedes this weekend?
I think Mercedes is doing a good job of trying to stay in the fight, but also I don't know if they're poised for a race win this year like that. And that's why I kind of asked you,
which is wild.
I kind of asked you a couple of weeks ago. I was like, Kimi's doing a really good job. Like, I have a wild question. You jumped me off and you said, well, I think he can win a race. And I was like, well, I was going to ask if you think he can make podium. I don't know if a win is I don't think it's in Kimi's future. I don't know the probability of George actually being able to win a race, which really sucks because George is doing a really good job taking over the role of being driver number one now for Mercedes, and he's done an incredible job. He's been very competitive. He's done the best that he can with the car.
And we're definitely be talking about George a lot more later, too.
Of course, but I don't know what Mercedes, I don't know what their ceiling is for this year yet. And I really hope they haven't already hit it. Yes, am I a McLaren fan? For sure, 100%. But I want to fight. I want to battle. I want there to be drama every weekend in this thing. And Mercedes is kind of the team that has to bring it because right now, no one else is other than Max Verstappen. So to answer your question, I don't know what we're seeing from Mercedes. I don't know what we're going to see from Mercedes. I'm hoping that the upgrades bring some excitement, but I would say they're doing good. They're doing pretty great, but
I mean, they're second place in the constructors right now.
Right.
That is a good place to be. Overall, they do have the second fastest car. I still believe that generally speaking, they've got the second most reliable machine.
I will say this. They're doing better than I thought they were going to do.
They're doing very well. I think that the characteristics of the car at present, I was convinced, that they were going to have a really strong performance. They've seemed to have figured out high speed and then high speed cornering, but the setup wasn't right this weekend. This isn't the final form of the Mercedes.
No.
Because they're going to bring a really big upgrade package to Imola, the same way that Ferrari have already brought some upgrades throughout this season, the same way that Red Bull have brought upgrades this season. For Mercedes haven't done anything to the car substantially. So with that being said, I'm not going to count Mercedes out, and that's not some homer thing. That really is. I'm not going to count them out because they're not finishing that far away.
They do such a good
from
job.
McLaren.
Well, they do such a good job at bringing upgrades. It's something that we've seen from Mercedes in the past, where maybe the track or maybe the car that they put on track to begin the year is not as talented, is not as it doesn't perform as well as the car that they finished the year with. Like Mercedes does a really good job of
the cars are always
upgrades.
going to get better throughout the course of the season. That's across the board.
I get that, but I'm just saying something. It always seems to me the Mercedes more than other teams at times do a really good job of understanding what needs to be fixed and bringing those upgrades.
They do a solid job, but this regulation has been really taxing for them. Last year, for instance, they brought a new floor to Spa that did not react the way that they were expecting to in the slightest. They just went back to the previous floor and then went on to win the race. It was really interesting. But the upgrades that they had intentionally planned that they thought were going to bring more performance gains didn't quite cut it. So they had a lot of questions to ask about why isn't this floor working. There have been moments like that throughout this entire regulation. So Mercedes, historically, before this, very effective. That within the budget gap, within these regulations, they've had struggles.
I was wrong.
So it's not always perfect for Mercedes, but they seem to understand the car now. And I'm really curious to see how much the upgrade package coming out of Imola is going to be impacting the performance of the car. Red Bull seem to have a progression plan that goes through Imola. Ferrari obviously brought a pretty big package through Bahrain, and I'm sure they have some more things throughout the rest of the season. And all that to say, we're not seeing Mercedes final form yet. I have a belief that they'll at least land a couple of wins this year. McLaren are very much still probably going to remain the front runners to win this championship. But mind you, and TLPs, if you've been watching Formula One the last few years, you'll probably remember this. This time last year, if you would have asked anybody, it was Red Bull's championship. It's going to be another year of Max Verstappen dominance. And then not only did they not finish in first in the constructors, Max barely held on to the World Drivers' Championship, won it with a few races to go, had a great start, but they were third place in the constructors by the end of the year, whether driver performance and car performance combined.
It was actually around this time last year where it all took the turn, where Lando won Miami, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, which is the next race up anyway. So, it's still early. I'm not going to say definitely there's no way Mercedes can win, because we've seen every other team in the top four take away wins in any of the formats that we've seen so far this year. McLaren have done it the most. They're deserving to lead the Constructors' Championship, but I wouldn't count Mercedes out from at least a win or two this season. Next up, we got to talk about a really strong weekend for Max Verstappen. My question walking into Saudi Arabia was, can Red Bull recover? And Max certainly did. He reminded everyone in the field that weekends like Bahrain will be more irregular than regular occurrences. Max Verstappen was on fire. Qualifying was phenomenal. They even did a really interesting pit stop strategy within qualifying that helped him get every last bit out of the car on low fuel to overtake Piastri, however, not converting the win. Max Verstappen, though, keeping himself in this championship. The team are doing their utmost to keep him in this championship. And if this weekend told us anything, it's that getting your car, once again, in the right window can make all the difference between the top step and then fighting for fourth place. So,
yeah, you know what? Actually, since you bring that up, during the race final, where everybody placed on the race. Sorry, I don't know why that took me so long to get to.
You're good.
There was a 10-second gap from first to fourth place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of tells how close everybody was as far as because Lando, he finished 9 seconds or so, just a little over 9 seconds from Oscar. So it was really tight. I guess that's all I was trying to say.
Yeah. But the final placings on the grid were 8 seconds apart between the entire podium, if I'm not mistaken. Charles wasn't as far back as it might have seemed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot closer. I mean, the car performance window this season is going to continue to be, I think, a huge week in, week out, how we're going to talk about every one of these teams. But it's also going to dictate wins. If you can start off in clean air at the beginning of each one of these races, you're going to have the best opportunity to win. McLaren obviously had the fastest car, generally speaking. They don't have a lot of weaknesses. But what Red Bull were able to do, putting it just right, put Max in a really good position to win until Max kind of lost it himself. Because I don't know how you felt about that penalty, but I thought that was a pretty straightforward penalty. That is something that we had seen. We had seen from Max Verstappen historically do something similar and complain the complete opposite way, the same way Oscar did.
And you're never going to hear a driver just straight up be like,
"Oh, I was wrong. That was all
that's
me."
on me, man. My bad. Yeah, I'll go ahead. I'll give me that 10 seconds. I'll go ahead and do my time. It's all good. You're not going to hear that. You're not going to hear that. You shouldn't expect to hear that from Oscar. You shouldn't expect to hear that from Max. And obviously, you're not going to hear an engineer sit there and argue with their driver in the middle of a race. I'm not here to dispute. I'm not here to dispute whether if it was or wasn't. I think.
Oh, I am. So
I think the 5 seconds. I personally think the 5 seconds is deserved.
I do.
I was a little surprised that it wasn't 10 seconds, just with the back, like what they've done in the past. But I guess 5 seconds is fine. Like, it definitely does enough to mess up the race.
I mean, it definitely changed the outcome of the race, but it was a proper penalty, in my opinion. Right. It was just enough that you were going to see the position swap during pitting, which is exactly what happened. And it gave Max an opportunity to either extend the lead out ahead by more than 5 seconds to try to make some sort of offset.
Which he wasn't able to do.
Because the McLaren is still pretty dang quick. But what it also gave him the opportunity to do was chase. He was within 3 seconds of Oscar Piastri by the end of the race. There was an opportunity there, depending on how things go. Let's say there's a racing incident at some point. You just never know.
Well, that's what Lando was hoping for. Lando and Charles were hoping for a racing incident so that way they didn't have to pit off those hards.
But overall, I think the penalty was correct. Max was not ahead going into the apex of that turn, and Oscar was able to keep his car on track. Max took the exit route and then came out ahead, overtook off track, and gained an advantage.
Well, I think it's
because we saw literally just a couple spots back, Kimi Antonelli have to do the exact same thing and then relinquish this place back to Lewis Hamilton, if I'm not mistaken, in the Ferrari, and then overtook him again later.
Which Max, of course, he's not going to give the place back. He's going to try to build it up just in case there is that penalty. But I think Oscar made a really good argument saying that, look, even if I wasn't there, he was not going to. Like, he was going too fast. He broke too late. So even if I wasn't there, he still was going to go straight through, and he was going too fast
to stay on track.
Yeah, he was going off track either way, whether if I was there or not.
Yeah. So, I mean, Oscar had a great jump. I mean, that entire incident doesn't happen if Oscar doesn't have amazing reaction time, it's really hard to beat Max in a reaction.
We talked about it over the phone. Was how quick and how good Oscar is and how he kind of rivals Max and getting off the line. But, Max is one of the best, and that's one of the things he does more. One of the things he does better than most is getting off the line quicker than
it's a really underrated skill, how quickly and how effectively he can react within that car. But unfortunately, there was a racing incident with his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, and Yuki Tsunoda's bestie Pierre Gasly on lap 1 led to a DNF. Thoughts on this, really? I don't think it was anybody's fault. It just seemed like a racing incident to me, a racing incident.
Well, that's what FIA determined as well.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, they were both meeting the same corner at the same time, just kind of out of position.
Well, it happens. Even Yuki and Pierre, obviously former teammates, they even, both were kind of like,
it wasn't even a beef issue. To me, it was just like, it happened.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's a race incident.
It's a racing incident. And as far as like upgrades and everything else, I had written down too. Red Bull are trying to keep this like competitive. They're doing their best job. And I just made some notes at some point. Like, Red Bull brought rear suspension, engine cover upgrades in Japan. This team is doing everything they can to enhance the car this year, keep Max in the World Drivers' Championship fight. So if I'm McLaren and if I'm your boys Oscar and Lando, I mean, Max isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon this year. He's going to be there fighting and keeping things very, very, very interesting. So as far as recovery is concerned, I mean, Max is always going to be in that mix. It's just a matter of really how competitive can Yuki start to finally, acclimate to this car, keep them in a constructor's fight. Where are they going to finish? And rounding out some storylines from Saudi Arabia, my question was for the Scuderia, will Ferrari bring the fight? And this was the first podium of the year for Charles Leclerc. It was a really strong drive. Like I mentioned a little while ago, he only finished 8 seconds behind Oscar Piastri when everybody was crossing the finish line. Ferrari are creeping closer and closer. I said this in the last podcast. The upgrades were there, and they're going to be getting closer. They're going to be creeping into this picture. I don't see Ferrari as a team that are going to just back off from a championship fight year in, year out. Like I said a little while ago, we're still really early into this season. We've only got 5 rounds down. We've still got 75% of the season more or less to go. Ferrari are probably going to remain in this mix. I still feel that way. However, on the other side of the garage, tough day at the office for Lewis Hamilton. Finished in P7. A bit of irony within this. Finished behind both of the Mercedes. Had a really rough qualifying. Finished behind Carlos Sainz in qualifying anyway. He started the race behind the guy he replaced, the kid who replaced him, and the teammate, that he left behind. So just some interesting, some storylines there. But behind both Mercedes, 30 seconds behind his teammate Charles Leclerc, seems to be struggling with the car. I think it's pretty fair assessment.
And he even said it himself that he was going to take off this next week and stay at the garage and work overtime and try to put more effort into learning the car and figuring out the car. And that's what Lewis is going to do. He's a professional. He's a legend. And
he just won't use the simulator.
I guess not.
No, I mean, that's like his thing. He prefers to learn on track. So, I mean, that's just one way of going about it. Some drivers like to use the simulator. Nonetheless, though, Hamilton just seemed really down. He seems pretty down on the outlook for the rest of the season after this race.
He does.
He said post-race, at the moment, there's no fix. So this is how it's going to be for the rest of the year. It's going to be painful.
It's good. I mean,
that was my championship prediction at the beginning of the season.
If that doesn't get you pumped up, I don't know what does.
No, it's unfortunate that he's struggling this much, but it's not surprising. I think
Charles was shocked as hell that they landed a podium. So
yeah. I mean, he worked for it too.
And
F1 TV were this close to his face in the post race. You get to see every red pore that was happening.
He was mere laps away, like I said earlier, from losing it to Lando too. So actually, Lewis helped him win that podium position by toying with Lando for a few laps. So you can make that argument as well.
Yeah, it helped. But
look, I think for Ferrari, I can't buy into them because they haven't even bought into themselves. They don't even think that they can win. They don't even think that they can compete. So why should I? Why should you? Why should the TLPs? Like,
I mean, both of us thought Ferrari
from the beginning that I don't think Ferrari was going to start off hot.
I mean,
now I don't even know if they're going to recover.
I mean, look, in our preseason predictions, both of us picked Ferrari drivers to win the World Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, I regret that.
Which is aging like, fine wine right now, or milk in a hot Texas sun. It ain't going great.
How you said that at all? Yeah, I mean, I picked Charles, but like, it didn't. I don't know.
All right,
I thought that they were gonna have I thought Charles was gonna have a good season, but like I said, it just doesn't look good.
P3 is still fantastic. Both of their drivers now have podium finishes to their name this season across all the formats. Look, I've said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. Ferrari are not out of this thing. I think they're going to be competing. They're going to be up there fighting for wins, man. I think they're going to be making people sweat.
Unless
as this season progresses, unless McLaren just continue to upgrade the hell out of this car and just punt 2026 altogether, it's going to be closer as the season continues.
Well, it sounds like we should all punt on 2026 and beyond, but that's just me.
I don't agree with that. Speaking of teams that are not punting on 2026, Williams. Your boys, Williams, Atlassian Williams Racing.
Come on.
Carlos Sainz had a really strong Saudi Arabia. His highest finish so far, if I'm not mistaken. He finished P8. Alex Albon finished in P9. They fended off the V-carb of Isaac Hadjar to grab 5th place in the constructors' standings, which preseason, Khaki Kevin Walker, sitting right next to me, predicted they would finish in P5. How we feeling so far, Khaki Kev?
Do you know where they are in the standings?
I just said it. Yeah, your ears are working?
No, I'm just making sure you said it twice.
They are in 5th place. They're 5 points ahead of Haas.
25 points, 0 wins, 0 podiums, obviously, for
Williams. Yeah, you said they were going to win this year. That was also a thing you said. Thanks for reminding me.
Did I actually say that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember saying that.
You said they were going to podium.
Do we have evidence?
We've got a whole podcast.
Look. 20 races.
But no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Possible.
You're off to a great start. Let the people know how you're feeling.
I feel great about this take so far. What I did not predict in this take was that Haas was going to have a good season and that Ollie Behrman and Esteban Ocon and that whole team was going to actually put together a pretty good year. But look, Williams has looked really good. And, you take away a few races from Carlos Sainz, a DNF, some unfortunate weekends that took place. But Alex Albon has done a really incredible job. Carlos has been leading, whether if he's in the pits or if he's on the track. I think Williams is doing an incredible job. They're performing exactly like I wanted them to. Well, 25 points is not anything crazy, but 17 points is all that they had all year last year. So the improvement is tremendous through the 5 races that we've already gone through. So,
I mean, hell, they've only crashed like once, right?
Yeah,
So,
and that's another thing. You're keeping the car on track. So
yeah.
Which is how many times did they crash?
Shout out Logan Sargent.
How many times they crashed?
Shout out Franco Colapinto.
So Williams is doing an incredible job. Like that's probably the take that I feel best about is that Williams is going to finish P5. You called me a madman. TLP.
I thought it was a bit aggressive,
madman, but they're sitting there right now, and you never know what could happen. Like I said, Haas is not too far away, but if Williams continues to stack together good weekends, they continue to be consistent. You never know what's going to happen.
I think
maybe a podium is possible.
I mean, feel free to go back and check out those old episodes, TLPs, our preseason predictions. I wanted to say, like, I saw them as like a P7. I thought P6 was a bit optimistic. So for them to be in P5 is fantastic. I love the trajectory. I'm a big fan of the driver duo. Albon is a fantastic driver. We've known this for a few years, but Carlos Sainz coming over, his wisdom and his racecraft and his intelligence to bring to this team, like this is a perfect combination of a driver pairing in my opinion. I saw them taking steps forward this season, and they've been putting a lot towards 2026 into the next regulation, which is why I thought there was a ceiling there, where you're putting all of your investment into the next regulation. You're just trying to build infrastructure. You're not necessarily going, oh, we've got an insanely great car and we're going to lead the midfield. Still a long ways to go. So far, it's looking good. I mean, the biggest contenders in the midfield for Williams are Haas, VCarb, Alpine have shown some strong form as of late. We're still early in the year. They're only 19 points back. And all it takes is one crazy-ass Brazil incident like last year to rocket you from 9th into 6th place. Or 5th place at this level. So still early. I'm really excited about this. I think I give a lot of credit to this driver pairing because they're making a real difference. Not crashing the car, putting it in the points, or at least sniffing the points. You have to be close. You have to be in the ballpark at all to enjoy the fruits of this labor. So I'm really curious to see how much they're going to be putting into the rest of this season. I know for a fact they've been eyeing the next set of regulations for years, according to James Vowles, their team principal. So hats off to Williams so far there. They're kind of like the team that you always want to root for, even though they're not your favorite team, right? Like Mercedes fan, McLaren fan. I know a Haas fan, which is wild. Loves the podcast. Appreciate you listening, buddy. But his two teams are Haas and Williams, but because Williams is his second team. And I feel like a lot of us racing fans wise, knowing the past glory of Williams to see where they are now, we want to see them get back to it.
F1 is good when Williams is good. And Williams has not been even close to decent in a long time. Right now, they're good. Williams is
they're a fun team to watch. Like that's the fun midfield team to watch.
On top of being disappointed with Lando, I was like, well, how is Williams doing? And that's kind of been how it has been every weekend.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do the rest of this year.
To see how terrible I'm doing in the P10 game. But
we can revisit that next week. It'll be great. It'll be great. Don't worry, my personal league, I'm doing terrible. All right, one more big thing I really wanted to talk about this week. It's been circulating social media sphere. Russell talks with Red Bull. And what are the implications of this? According to the Last Word on Sports website, we've got that pulled up if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we do. Okay, perfect. George Russell had an informal chat with Red Bull. Could the Mercedes leader actually leave? Khaki Kev.
You said you're the one that's got all the notes. I've
got a lot of information here, but I want to let you start. What do you think is going to happen here?
I just don't see it happening. George is doing such a good job. I think the only reason that Mercedes would have to move off of George is if Max forced his way in. I think Mercedes would love to keep George. He's done nothing but answer everything that they've wanted him to do. And I don't envision a world where Kimi has to be the odd guy out, right? So I mean, to say it's impossible is untrue. We've seen silly season take place before, but I don't see it personally happening. I think that when you look at it, all the top teams are already full. Ferrari's full, McLaren's full. The only team with a possible question mark is Mercedes. And even then, I just don't view it very likely. Toto likes to stick with his guys. Toto likes to stick with the people that he rose from the top. George and Kimi are literally both of those guys. The only team that makes sense is Aston Martin, and they've already got a bag on the table for them.
So, I mean, you've laid out a lot of the highlights of what I've got here. Overall, in a nutshell, I think a lot of the TLPs will probably agree with me. And if you whether you agree with me or not, comment what you think about this situation in the comments below. But I don't think so. Mercedes are going to have a really strong engine in 2026, according to all accounts. Finally, this is George Russell's team. Lewis is no longer a Mercedes driver. He's in Ferrari. Antonelli is a strong running mate as right now. You don't have to worry about him as a threat. You just help bring him along. That's your job, right? He could be the future, but he's not right now. Right. George Russell's time is right now. And even he has said that he's not worried about not getting re-upped. He said this in the media, that's really early to be talking about a contract extension at this point. Usually these things are taking place over the course of the European chunk of the calendar. There's a lot of races there, but we still have a little bit of a ways to go. Not until the middle of next month are we even going to be in Europe in the slightest. So I don't think that George Russell's going to leave. More or less, this is a great opportunity to stay. He's not going to cost you 100 million euros a year like Max Verstappen might, according to some allegations that I'm going to get into in here in a second. Overall, George is going to get a nice bag. He's going to be very well taken care of. I don't think that he's going to leave. I think it's going to be Antonelli and Russell for at least the next 3 to 4 years. That's my personal opinion on that. Max, however, would he leave Red Bull? And that's what really started all of this. What's the conversation on Max Verstappen? Is he going to leave? I also don't think so. In a nutshell, I don't think so. But there's a lot of things that circulate this story. There's a lot of conversation. And in 2026, it sounds like they'll be, they're going to be behind Mercedes in their engine development, their first year of their Ford partnership. There's going to be a lot of change between the engine regulations. There's even discussions being had about certain performance measures not quite being up to snuff yet, but engine regulations are changing massively. I don't think Verstappen is actually going to push himself out until at least the middle of next year. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion. He's gonna see what the actual lay of the land is. He's gonna see how things are looking. He's gonna get an idea of like, okay, this engine in Red Bull powertrains, it's absolute crap. It's garbage. Right. Or it's great and I'm competitive and I can at least I can see the trajectory here. I can stay here, commit myself to this project and finish out my contract at the very least. I don't think he's gonna leave. At the earliest, you're not gonna see Max Verstappen in another car until 2027. But if he is gonna go anywhere, Aston Martin make a whole lot of sense. And here's a lot of the reasons why. Aston Martin is kind of the only place that makes sense. Aston Martin's got Adrian Newey, and they're going to have Honda engines, which could make things very interesting. You mentioned it earlier. Reports of a 300 million euro offer to the Dutchman have been circulating. Aston Martin are in prime position because McLaren are certainly not going to move off of Lando and Oscar unless something wild happens, but Oscar just re-upped on a massive extension. George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, we just established, very unlikely to be going away in either direction. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, they're committed to Ferrari for the next 3 to 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. So who's left? Williams? Nope. Alpine, they're going to have a Mercedes engine in the next regulations, but it just doesn't feel right. Audi? Nope. Cadillac? Nope. Haas? No way. Aston Martin are the only place that makes sense to me.
Well, they're also the only team that I can think of that can shell out that amount of money for Max.
But they have 2 drivers, right?
Oh, I mean, yeah, but still.
Yeah. Fernando Alonso, who signed a multi-year extension with the team. But who else is on that team?
Oh, what's his name?
Oh, it's coming back to me. He's the only guy who scored points this year for Aston Martin.
I can't remember his name. He's from Canada or something.
Yeah.
Look, I get it. I think if Max goes to Aston Martin, I think it's more of a, hey, Fernando Alonso's retiring and we're going to pair Max with Lance.
So you think it would have to be Max and Lance?
I think it would have to be. I don't see a situation. I think that's what Lawrence wants because that makes it easy on him. That means he doesn't have to tell his son to sit the bench so that way he can bring on the best driver and
So are you ready?
Sport.
Are you ready for this last chunk of information I'm about to throw at you?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So I've been doing some digging into this, and there have been a lot of conversations.
Not just Twitter
happening.
digging.
No. Actual
Reddit
journalism.
digging. Okay.
No. Actual journalism. I went. There's some sources out here for this. So Reuters, F1 team ownership could be the next F1 step for Saudi Arabia. This is a very interesting article. I want you to keep it in mind. So Lance Stroll, I bring him up specifically. Alonso, a guy that has that multi-year deal. He's going to be there for at least the next few years. I don't think that that's going to change. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. In a nutshell, excuse me, Lance Stroll is on a goodwill year-to-year deal because of his father, Lawrence Stroll, who owns the majority stake of Aston Martin as an organization, not just as a Formula One racing team, but he owns the majority of the team. So with that in mind, I want to say his ownership, is 33%. There are the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, or PIF for short. They own 20% of Aston Martin and are looking to buy out Lawrence Stroll and take over ownership of the team, according to reports. And this could be really interesting to follow because it absolutely ties to the Max Verstappen stuff. It absolutely is tied into that. Other teams that own investments in Formula One, you're a McLaren fan. I don't know if you know this. Bahrain's Sovereign Wealth Management Fund is a major shareholder in the reigning Constructor World Champions McLaren, as cited in this Reuters article. Abu Dhabi's CVNY Holdings also acquired McLaren Automotive, or are acquiring, in the process of acquiring, and Qatar's investment authority, the QIA, own a minority stake in Audi. So Middle Eastern countries having an investment in Formula One teams is not a foreign concept to the sport of Formula One. It is a very entrenched thing in Formula One at this stage of the championship's history. And on top of this, Lawrence Stroll's investment is very much so centered not just around the brand of Aston Martin, which is a very luxurious, very beautiful brand. You know, that their cars are gorgeous. Hell, I drove one away from my wedding when I got married last year. And they're gorgeous cars. It was a dream of mine to drive an Aston Martin DB9. I love Aston Martins, believe me. But with all that being said, if Lance Stroll doesn't really want to do it anymore, and his dad doesn't necessarily really want to do it anymore, sells the team over to Saudi Arabia, they absolutely are going to have the funds to put $300 million in the Dutchman's pockets,
they could put
or more.
Plus. They could put 300 plus,
and all the extra money and incentive to continue to build the Aston Martin racing team, or whatever they decide to name it moving forward.
I mean, you saw what.
So that's not
changing sports. You saw what the Saudi Arabia fund could build up for Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean,
yeah. You got the Live Golf tournament.
Just
right?
imagine what they could do for Max Verstappen. Oh, dude.
Yeah,
300. They're like 300, and then what? It's
yeah.
like that. So there's a what? Like the down payment, or
you want an island?
Yeah,
dude, it's yours.
Yeah,
just name your price, man.
We'll call the team Max Verstappen.
And think about this too. The infrastructure would absolutely be there. Spare no expense. You're trying to build a championship level team, right?
Do you think they would have the ability to get any power unit that they want?
I mean, they're going to have the Honda power unit, which is historically speaking a pretty strong organization to be working with. So it's
definitely the organization that Max prefers.
Yeah, I mean, he's won championships with them. He's won all of his driver championships under Honda engines. So all that being said, there is a realistic world where Lawrence Stroll is not going to be the owner and the face of the Formula One team that is known as Aston Martin currently, and Lance Stroll will be easily the odd man out. The Saudi Arabian, their investment, they come in. Lance Stroll will not be driving in Formula One. I'll put it like that. It'll be Fernando Alonso if he's still here the next few years, and it'll be whoever they absolutely can get their hands on to put in that cockpit. So
I like your speculation.
I appreciate it.
That was nice.
I appreciate
TLPs, let us know what you think about that. I don't know any other F1 podcast that is bringing out speculation and talking like that, but we bring it here on TLP.
Hey, look, and that's just a theory. We'll see how it goes, but there are machinations at work. There are things that are happening behind the scenes, and there are things that are even leaking to the media. So that's all we got for you this week, though. Look, this is a really fun one. Episodes like this, I didn't even expect to go this long, but that is all we got for you this week. Next week, we are going to be previewing the Miami Grand Prix taking place next weekend, bringing all our reaction, any news and updates from this weekend off, previewing the madness in Miami next week, our predictions and more. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, guys. It costs you absolutely nothing at all. Share it with your friends and family if you're feeling dangerous. If you haven't already, subscribe to us on all the social medias. They're not there right now for some reason, but they've been scrolling the entire time, this entire video. Oh, there they are. Yeah. Subscribe to us on all of our socials. Connect with us on social media. We'd love to interact with you guys. That's all I got for you guys this week. Thank you so much for watching. Kevin Walker is alongside me. Until next time, be safe, be well, and let's go racing.